Hello, Bremer County and all of Iowa. This is Shawn and Emily coming to you today from our Deciding Iowa discussion, where we will give an update on the legislative actions and consider the impacts locally and for the state generally.
Hi, I'm Dr. Shawn Emily. I'm a cancer scientist, biochemistry professor, school board member, and most recently, a former House District 57 candidate.
And I'm Dr. Emily Babers. I am an OBGYN, a mother of three, and a reproductive freedom advocate.
Well, Emily, we just passed the second funnel for the Iowa legislature. This means a bill to stay alive has to have passed the floor debate in one chamber and gain committee approval in the other chamber. There are, of course, some exceptions. This past week, there was a slug of committee work and not much floor action as each chamber tried to second funnel proof as many viable bills as possible. Emily, with all that said, was there anything positive you'd like to comment on about this week's activities?
Well, I think maybe our biggest win this week is that the pesticide immunity bill, Senate File 394, did not pass the second funnel. This means that for now, Iowans who are gravely harmed by chemicals, even those with a printed warning, can seek recourse for their ongoing medical needs. And this is really a win for Iowans, particularly when you consider the expansive ag industry here. Really, pollution is about the end users who may not even be aware of their exposure, and certainly aren't in control of their exposures. The individuals who are exposed to chemicals, including Roundup, may not be anywhere near a farm where they can see a warning label. They might be drinking water from a public well that gets contaminated. They may be pregnant and have fetal harm from teratogenic exposure. There's no reason that a multi-billion-dollar company such as Bayer should have legal immunity. And I applaud the Iowa House of Representatives for upholding that. So in response to the House failing to advance this bill, the Senate President, Republican Amy Sinclair said, "Well, I don't try to tell the House how to do their job. I suppose the House can be entitled to their wrong opinion." Well, if our elected representatives are disagreeing with Senator Sinclair, I feel like that's a sign that the pendulum might be swinging.
I hope you're right, Emily. You know, the Iowa House and Senate don't always see eye to eye, regardless of what party's in power. And we are seeing this played out most recently in agriculture, tort liability, and eminent domain bills.
Yeah. Well, what's on your mind today, Shawn?
You know, yesterday I stopped at the grocery store and picked up a handful of things, and I could not believe my bill.
Oh,
I'm still feeling inflation. It's not changed. How about you, Emily?
same. I
Yeah.
mean, it's crazy.
And you know, with tariffs in place, it's only going to get a whole lot worse, unfortunately.
Right.
And getting my property tax and house assessment updates, you know, didn't make me feel any better.
Right.
So, like you, I'm feeling an economic squeeze and hoping for relief. We spoke about the Republican plan for property tax relief a few weeks ago. Since then, Iowa Democrats have proposed their own version of property tax relief in the form of House File 491.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, their plan involved a $1,000 property tax rebate for all homeowners, $500 rebate for renters, and then there's a companion bill, House File 916, that freezes property tax for folks over the age of 65. Now, to pay for this relief, Dems proposed dipping directly into the Taxpayer Relief Fund. According to the Iowa Capitol Dispatch, Pat Grassley expressed concern about using the Iowa Taxpayer Relief Fund to directly pay for the proposed property tax relief. Quote, "We know right now that Taxpayer Relief Fund helps smooth any unforeseen things that might happen as we reduce the tax to 3.8%. So I'd want to see what that direct proposal would look like and how that would impact the income tax cut." Well, Pat, I thought we needed to cut taxes because we were over collecting on the income tax front. Are you admitting that unforeseen things might happen?
Just completely contradicts himself.
Give me a break. We all know this was going to lead to a big deficit. It sure sounds like you are concerned there might not be enough money in the taxpayer relief fund to keep ahead of the incredible budget deficit you and your legislative peers have in store for Iowa in the next few years.
Right.
Okay, all right. So Grassley has trepidation for using the Iowa Taxpayer Relief Fund to support the Dems' plans. Emily, as we discussed a few weeks ago, the Republican property tax proposal will require the state to appropriate more funds directly to the schools to offset the projected property tax relief.
he's okay using it for some things.
I'm starting to look at the proposal as a property tax credit recapture shell game. Because I'm pretty sure when you are running hundreds of millions of dollars in annual deficit, any promise that Grassley Republicans make on backfilling schools from state coffers will require tapping into the taxpayer relief fund. I
Right.
guess with the Republican approach, they assume more budget control down the road to squeeze public schools even tighter as needed.
Right, exactly.
And plus recent history has not been kind to the Republican legislature on direct funding promises. As in, they've made a similar promise in the past and didn't follow through. So folks are rightly concerned the Republican promise to directly fund schools to cover lost property tax levies won't be worth the paper it is printed on.
Right. Our schools are suffering.
According to the Iowa Capital Dispatch, when Grassley was asked about their proposal to backfill education, as part of the property tax relief proposal, he said, we've been pretty consistent that if we're going to do it, we need to fund it. And that's why this plan looks at this direct shift to the education piece, which affects all property taxpayers. Okay, Pat, if you say so. But everyone remember that quote, if and when Republican property tax plan moves forward as written and they start underfunding on that promise.
Right, exactly. That's the concerning thing, is that we know that they have backed out of this in the past.
Yeah. It's hard to trust them. Yeah, and Emily, Pat Grassley also sounded offensive when he said, quote, when it comes to the funding aspect of it, I continue to remind Iowans we're spending more money on education right now than we ever have as a state. What a bunch of BS spin. I spend more on groceries right now because everything costs more. And he makes it seem like Iowa's investing more than ever in education.
They're not keeping pace.
No, funding is not matching inflation and need. Public school cuts are all over the news. And a chunk of that increase in education spending is in the voucher program. That type of spin makes me think even less about Republican property tax plan promises moving forward.
Correct, Shawn. This makes me think of just last week, we saw the Waterloo School Board and just in neighboring Blackhawk County, and they were having a lot of public pressure over their plans to cut most of the librarians from schools. And these are the professionals who help our kids find the books that are appropriate for them, and all these book bans and library restrictions and what's appropriate for our children. And we want to pull librarians out of schools. So it's supposed to save the school district about $825,000 before the next school year to meet their own budget shortfall. And our kids and the remaining teachers are going to be the ones who suffer.
We need help.
Oh,
I'm more than a little bit concerned. Yeah, and Emily, a few weeks ago when we discussed the looming state budget deficit, we mentioned how important Iowa's economic growth is to state revenues now that we've got a 3.8% flat tax and cut corporate taxes.
correct.
The economic news is not good. According to the Des Moines Register, Iowa's unemployment growth since 2019 is 0.6%. The rest of the country, 4.6%. According to the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis Statistics, from 2022 to 2023, Iowa's experienced a 2% drop in real personal income, worst in the nation.
Wow.
Last year, Iowa's economy shrank by 0.5%, second worst in the U.S., and only one of two states to see economic regression. We were also third to last in personal income growth and the second lowest job growth in the country. This week, news broke 130 jobs will be lost in Decorah when Sodexo closes this summer. 160 jobs out of Dubuque when ASM Global institutes mass layoffs. And 651 jobs will be lost by Whirlpool layoffs in Amana. That's over 1,000 jobs in 1 week. And since Reynolds and the Republican leaders cut unemployment benefits, displaced workers from mass layoffs will have less time to land on their feet. When your economy is this bad compared to other states, including agricultural driven ones, it's pretty disingenuous to blame the federal government. But that's what the Republicans here in the state did. To paraphrase Rita Hart, Iowa Republican leaders, you've been in control for 10 years. This one is on you. I agree, Rita. How about the next election we pull over and change drivers by electing new leadership for the state of Iowa?
I certainly hope so. I wonder if Iowans know these statistics.
Well, we got a shout on the roof because it's going the wrong way.
Wow.
The main reason for Iowa's stagnant economy, according to many economists, labor shortage. This especially includes shortage of skilled labor. Look, when you make national news and refusing SNAP benefits, having the second highest and fastest growing cancer rate in the country, attacking social support, taking away civil liberties, removing reproductive choice, restricting access to insurance, gutting AEA supported education, undermining labor, unsafe public drinking water, sending public dollars to private schools without any oversight, generally making Iowa a divisive place that many young people want to escape from. Yeah, you're going to have a labor shortage and economic stagnation. No amount of corporate tax breaks is going to change that. Remember the phrase attributed to Iowa's Field of Dreams? If you build it, they will come. Okay, how about we reverse bad decisions, address health and unemployment needs, and build Iowa into a welcoming and supportive place? That will be the economic boost that we need.
Absolutely. Shawn, while there were some really, really bad bills that didn't survive the second funnel, like House Study Bill 186, which promoted misinformation around abortion reversal, there were also several bills that died that could have helped Iowans who are going to struggle in the economy moving forward. Those who have been laid off in the last year, those who are struggling to afford childcare or groceries, and those who will be harmed further by the ever-escalating tariff wars by President Trump.
It's a tough time.
I'm really concerned for our friends and our neighbors in Bremer County, and I know that when there are not good jobs around for people will leave these rural areas.
That's my fear too, Emily. So what's ahead for the Iowa legislature next?
Well, we've seen a few bills now that have survived the second funnel. And what remains to be done this session is to complete appropriations.
Okay.
And that basically means any bills or function of the state government that requires funding will be worked on. And anything that did not survive the funnel could also fall into appropriations, could be resurrected.
Okay, well, we'll watch for that and talk more about some bills that didn't make it through the second funnel and others that are still alive.
Yeah,
Well, be well, Iowa.
thanks.